My dad, my grandfather, both, they served the people from all different walks of life. And when I went off to find my own journey, I always thought that, hey, when I show up, I want to show up and I want all the skills that are required for me to take advantage of the opportunities that came my way.
Welcome to the Net Assets Podcast, the official podcast of NBOA Business Leadership for Independent Schools. I'm your host, Jeff Shields, NBOA President and CEO. And today I truly am honored to welcome Dallas Joseph, Chief Financial and Operating Officer at Baylor School in Chattanooga, Tennessee. If you haven't been to Chattanooga, you're missing out. Get there. Dallas has served Baylor for more than 25 years and is one of the most respected leaders in independent school business operations. In 2019, Dallas was recognized with the Ken White Distinguished Business Officer Award, the highest honor presented by NBOA. He served on the NBOA Board of Directors, serving as board chair from 2011 to 2013, and currently serves as an advisor to NBOA Advisory Services, as well as a mentor for the NBOA Leadership Academy. And we're going to talk about all of the above today, live at the 2026 NBOA Annual Meeting in Orlando. Dallas, welcome to the podcast.
So thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to sit here and talk with you today.
I can't believe it's taken me this long to get you on as a guest.
That's right. That's right.
You have so many firsts in your resume. You should have been one of my first, but you know what? No time like the present, and I'm really grateful to have you here today. Before we dive in, obviously you're here because you've been deeply involved with NBOA for decades, with meetings, with conferences, board service, all of it. I'd love for you, because I wasn't there, for you to take me back to your very first NBOA event. What stands out about that when you think about it today?
Yeah. So my very first NBOA event was in New York City. I believe it was probably in 2001. It was a joint program that was put on by TIAA and NBOA.
Oh, wow.
It was special because at the time I was new to the independent school world, and I was really trying to reach out to network and meet some colleagues who could tell me more about independent school and the challenges that were there, and just trying to meet colleagues that I could connect with. And so I remember showing up, and there were two young ladies sitting in front of me, Mary Pat Higgins, who was at Hockaday.
I remember her well.
And Melissa Ort, who was at the Green Hill School. They were my first two people that I met.
That's something.
And I remember both of them asking me, hey, how would you like to work in an association? I really didn't know what they were talking about.
Sure.
Because at the time, NBOA wasn't a known name to me.
For sure.
And so that was my first introduction to NBOA.
What did they say to convince you to get involved with NBOA back?
Well, they didn't say anything about NBOA. They just asked, hey, would you be willing to work in an association?
Okay.
And he said yes, because I wanted to be involved. I wanted to get to know people in the profession. And so I said yes. And so later that night, I got invited with a group of people to go out to a bar, right? And the Ken Peels of the world, the Terry Armstrong, the Sarah Daniels, D. Forget, Kay Lindsay.
What a roster.
And then I didn't know who these people were or what they meant to NBOA. I just knew that I was invited. And so I went out and heard all these people talking. And now I know what those names mean. And for those of you who listen who don't know those individuals, those were the standard bearers. That's my first NBOA event.
So many of those things are still true today. The connections, the come out and have a drink with us, the importance of community. But when you think about that time, what changes since then stand out the most? It's 2026 now. What's different about the profession, about this meeting? There's some obvious things that are different, but what do you think about? Really thinking about particularly business leaders and CFOs today from that time?
I think the association sort of mimics the evolution of the profession.
I agree with that 100%.
And I think about NBOA, the NBOA that I first got introduced to, I think it was more tactical. It was an organization that was more so about networking, getting business managers together, setting up ways for us to share information, and probably disseminating tactical information. That was similar to what I found the business role was when I entered into independent school.
Yeah.
Because again, I was coming from Harry, and so the organizational structure was different. And I was a VP of finance coming in, and I was more strategic at that point. The independent school world was just moving from business manager to CFO.
Sure.
And so it was more tactical. Back today, when you look at it, it's all about strategic initiatives, right? And the responsibilities of the role of the CFO today is so much greater and so much more risk involved than it was. Sure. Yeah. It's the same thing with NBOA. We didn't have the large platform that we have across the independent school world that we have today. We've gone from being a voice to the voice.
Right.
What is us in independent school?
I really appreciate that. And thanks to you and so many of the people that you just named that you mentioned during that first meeting. That's just really incredible who you ran into first. Reflecting on your service on the NBOA board, we're going to fast forward a little bit. Yes. What are you most proud of?
I think I was there when we visioned the idea of moving from a small organization to a much larger national organization and being a definitive voice in the profession. And just thinking about how we could be that strategic partner for, at the time, the head of school, because that was the big thing back then.
It's still big today. You would agree that relationship's critical.
I would agree. But I do think that we were not talking about governance then. We're just talking about being a strategic partner to the head of school. Today, it's more strategic, not only to the head of school, but to the board of directors as well.
Yes. And your colleagues on the leadership team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Everyone being that strategic partner. Yeah. And really establishing yourself as someone who doesn't just run the expression I hate the most, the back office.
That's right.
Doesn't just run the back office, but is really there to support the entire enterprise and the mission through a financial lens. Now, you mentioned, which I didn't know at the time, which is interesting, that you came from higher education to the independent school world.
That's correct.
I came from the CUBO, for folks out there, which was the National Association of College University Business Officers, to NBOA. For CFOs or COOs, thinking about the transition, I know what I would say is the big difference, but I want to hear from you. Considering a move from higher education into independent schools, how would you describe the difference in those roles? Understanding a lot has changed in both higher ed and independent schools since you came to this space.
When I was in higher ed, I didn't necessarily sit, and there are a number of things that I probably could point out, but I'll go to this particular one. In higher ed, I was not on the financial aid committee. In the independent school world, as a CFO, if you desire, you could be on the financial aid committee. I wanted to be on the financial aid committee. The difference that you get to make by helping families who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford an education for their kids it's unbelievable.
Powerful.
It's a powerful thing because you see these kids, and whether you are pre-K through 12th grade, Baylor's 6 through 12, you help a family at the 6th grade level afford the education. I've been at Baylor long enough now for the students that I helped in 2000. They're 25, 26, 27 years old now. They're coming back and they're talking about how I helped them and their family afford a Baylor education that helped them get to their dreams.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to me because you do have a lot of tenure. You're so well respected, but being on that financial aid committee has always been important to you. And a lot of CFOs didn't see it that way, but you do for that very reason. Is that your advice to other CFOs, to be part of that process, get closer to it and really play a role in it?
Well, that's the mission of the institution, to help kids make a positive difference in the world.
For sure.
That's the starting point. 6th grade at Baylor, right? You have the ability to have a lifelong impact on the life of a child and their family.
Yeah.
That's just one aspect of the difference between higher ed and independent schools. I'd say the other one is just the impact that you can have across the platform. In higher ed, depending on what size institution, most of your colleagues may not even know you, may not have ever met you. But in an independent school world, every colleague that you're working, and you get to establish friendships and relationships that help you provide the resource and support.
Yeah.
That what faculty, staff, or students need to be successful in their institution. A lot of times you don't get to do that in higher ed.
I agree with that. And that was my observation. I called it the level of, I'll say, involvement that the CFO has at a pre-K through 12 independent school is so different than in higher ed. And I would say, you mentioned the lives of your colleagues, faculty and staff. I would say the lives of your students. In higher ed, you're really not involved in the daily space and activity and engagement of students the way I think this job almost demands.
That's right.
In pre-K through 12.
That's right.
And now let's take a break to tell you a little bit more about the Campus Services Group. We know that independent school leaders have a lot to focus on. The last thing you should worry about is whether your facilities are meeting the mark. Campus Services Group works alongside schools as a partner in the day-to-day stewardship of the campus. CSG believes the right people make the difference and invests heavily in the teams who maintain the campus experience. From custodial programs to ongoing facility support, Campus Services Group manages the operational details so leadership can stay focused on mission and community. Visit campusservices.com to learn more. You've been at this role a long time. Now, I'm at NBOA 16 years today, Dallas. Today, as we're celebrating this. So you remember that?
I did.
That kid that talked a lot and had a lot of big ideas and a lot of energy and all that. Anyway, it's not about me, it's about you. 25 years, 26 years at Baylor School. How do you maintain that role? How do you maintain that level of longevity? Because I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not going to judge that. But that tenure is going to be harder and harder to find in business leaders, especially CFOs and COOs, as the years come ahead of us. But what's your secret to longevity at Baylor?
The team that I've worked with.
Yeah.
I think it's important for us as leaders to recognize that we have to prepare for when we move on.
Yeah.
And you do that by hiring a great team that you can give opportunities to take on initiatives so that you don't have to do all the work, right? And when you have a good team behind you, they continue to push you to learn new things and to go places that maybe you didn't think you could go. And so you keep raising the ceiling, right?
Yeah.
Because you bring people in behind you who need more. And when you recognize that, you give them more, it means that you are moving up and you're learning and taking on new responsibilities and new roles. I think we talked a little bit about this earlier. I think I've reached that point in my career where in some ways I'm second guessing whether or not a 26, 27-year career is good at one place.
Yeah. And what do you mean by that? What are you second guessing about it?
So as you become the institution.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a heavy burden when you are the holder of all of the information, right? Everybody wants a piece of you.
Yeah.
You're in every conversation, every meeting.
Or they check in with you after a conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
And your time becomes the institution's time.
Yeah.
You're fighting for that strategic time that you used to have, that you used to guard.
Yeah.
Because you were not in all of the meetings, you were not in all of the phone calls. And being refreshed and going off somewhere and starting over where you can let that go and you can really get into the things that you need to do to keep moving the needle. But once you start making all of the meetings and being in all the conversations, it's just hard to move the needle at that point.
I often say to myself, why would I go to a different organization and deal with what I don't know? I'd rather stay at this organization, which I happen to love and the members I love, and deal with what I already know has to be had. I want to talk about a sensitive but important topic. And throughout your career, you've really broken boundaries in independent education. Talk about a burden, right? Talk about a responsibility that I think you've elected to. You can tell me differently, but I think you've elected to being the first person of color to serve as CFO at Baylor, to chair the NBOA board, to receive the Ken White Distinguished Business Officer Award. What's it like to be a trailblazer in a profession in this regard? And what has that meant to you personally?
Wow. We've talked a little bit about this before. Growing up in the 60s when I grew up, my grandfather and my dad both owned their own businesses. And I watched how they had to navigate to whether it was to get licenses to run their business or to buy from certain vendors. And it taught me a lot about perseverance and always being prepared.
Yeah.
And my dad and my grandfather both, they served people from all different walks of life. And when I went off to find my own journey, I always thought that, hey, when I show up, I want to show up and I want all the skills that are required for me to take advantage of the opportunities that came my way. And we have a saying that you always have to be better than everybody. And so that was just always there. And so when I had the opportunity as a vice president of finance in the collegiate world to be the first African-American or Black president, vice president at a Lutheran Finnish college in Michigan, I was prepared. I didn't walk in thinking about that I was the first. Yeah, I had a job to do, but also knew that I had to be successful in that role in order for someone else behind me to get an opportunity. Is that a burden? It is. So is working hard.
Yeah.
But my mom, my dad prepared me for that growing up during the time that I was growing up to say that, hey, once you get these opportunities, you have to be ready for it.
Yeah. When that door opens,
When the door opens,
your job is to be prepared.
to be prepared and to be thinking about the impact that you have will have an opportunity for someone else to walk through that same door.
That's right.
Keep the doors open by doing your job. And so that first one, it was a little scary.
Right.
Because I was more concerned about failing or not failing. What I should have been thinking about, which was, okay, what I need to do to get them 5 years down the road. But after that first year, when I got comfortable and I knew I was making a difference, it was a no-brainer that, hey, this is right for me, and that others behind me will have an opportunity because I'm stepping through this door and I'm being successful.
I have to tell you, I obviously have known you since I started at NBOA. For the listeners, Dallas was on my search committee. And one thing I've seen you do is mentor other professionals at the meeting.
Yes.
Why is that important to you? Can you expand on that? Because you seem to be very actively doing that every time I see you at a gathering like this.
Yeah. I've always been a person who cared about helping others. But that first NBOA event where, whether it was Sarah Danielle, Katie Lindsay, Terry Armstrong, Bob Mueller, they didn't know me, but they invited me in to have a conversation for me to learn more about independent schools.
Yeah.
And the more I talked with them and met with them at different conferences, it was almost like I owed it back to the profession to help people like people helped me to get there. That's what it's all about. That still today is probably one of the lasting things that has never changed about NBOA, and that's the help that business officers give to one another.
Yeah.
Right.
It's in our DNA.
It's in our DNA. We're always willing to share and be helpful to others. And so whether it's helping other Black professionals in the organization, in the NBOA, get to positions where they have an opportunity to serve on boards, serve on committees, whether it's reaching out to just any of my colleagues and giving them any advice that I can, that's just something I love to do. And it goes back to that first meeting I had with NBOA. People helped me too.
It speaks to your leadership, but it really speaks to theirs because they were practicing inclusivity before we even had a name for it.
Yes.
And before it became a thing. And isn't that something all those many years ago, they saw how important it was to bring someone in, especially someone who was unique to the community at that time.
But here's the thing, Jeff. I didn't recognize that until after it happened, because I remember we were in San Diego for an NBOA meeting, and Kate Lindsay, after the dinner, basically said, hey, I think you could hit this organization. I heard you, but I just kept walking.
Yeah.
I didn't think twice about it. And years later, I got to thinking about that comment from Katie and how so far in front of things NBOA was at the time.
I'm impressed to hear that, actually.
But it was Katie who and if Katie,
I know Katie,
you know how she thinks. But yeah, NBOA was out there in the front.
Proud to have seen that.
The whole diversity issue, that's right.
We're running out of time. I could talk to you all day, but I definitely want to ask you this last question, which is, what do you want your legacy to be in the profession, in NBOA, in the community? I'll always remember you. You've had a huge impact on my career, but what would you want people to remember about Dallas Joseph?
That I was always there to be helpful.
Wow.
I remember a NBOA board member walking up to me several years ago when he was just up and coming in the profession. And he said to me, he said, I'll always remember that you always took time to answer my questions. Whenever I saw you at meetings, you were always readily available. And so for me, I think that's it. Being available for my colleagues, sharing the information I have to help make them successful. That's what I want to be remembered as.
And make them feel at home at NBOA and make them feel like they belong there.
Yes.
Which they did for you.
Yes. But what do I think would be my lasting impact on NBOA, the association? And what I'm most proud of was serving on the search committee that brought you into NBOA.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah. Because when I think about the NBOA today, and look, we talked about it. What was the difference? Today is more professional and more strategic than it was when I first had my introduction to NBOA. But you coming into NBOA was the real transition for us in the profession from moving to the tactical to the strategic. We're coming from NBOA,
Yep.
which I was part of when I was in the higher ed world, and today, we're talking 16, 17 years later.
Yeah.
Just look at the growth of the organization, the professionalism of it, the growth of the association team. It's been fantastic. And so my most lasting impact will be your leadership on this impact, because I was the person that was handed your search packet.
That's right.
And so that, to me, that's probably going to be my most lasting impact.
So I never thought about that way. You're probably the first independent school business officer I actually spoke with directly about NBOA.
Yeah.
Your respect and your support has been invaluable to me my entire career. And that's all the time we have. But I want to thank you for that. And thank you for joining us today. You're going to go back to doing what you like to do, which is mentoring in our Leadership Academy program. But I do want to say thank you for the leadership, the service, the example you've provided to NBOA and to independent schools across the country. To our listeners, if today's conversation resonated with you, I encourage you to get involved with NBOA through learning, volunteering, networking, opportunities that fortify you and strengthen the profession. And remember, NBOA is always your partner in leading the business of independent schools. So until next time, thanks for listening to the Net Assets Podcast.